Thank you.
Well, what do you make of the reasons we have heard of so far? I mean, you've heard, well, it might seem like a buck person, but at least there's some explanation. For instance, INEC holds on to the fact that they submitted the budget on time. This is the first time they were beginning to see the details of the budget. I mean, INEC's the subheadings of each line item of the budget is being scrutinized. What we've seen before is that it's just passed lump sum. They are holding on to that to say this is the first time there is some transparency in their budgeting process. The executive arm of government claims that they could not have submitted the INEC budget any earlier because it was going to come as a supplementary budget and the main budget for the country had not been passed. As of June this year, it was passed, you know, mid this year. They say that they could not have submitted it. The National Assembly is saying, why didn't you bring it much earlier? What do you make of all that has, I mean, all we have heard in terms of the explanation of why this budget is coming late and, you know, perhaps the reason why it might be passed late as well?
That's still an evidence of people who are not serious. Number one is, if INEC said they submitted the budget earlier, as early as when? Was it as early as October last year? It
January,
ought to be submitted as early as
January this year.
Please? Pardon?
No. As early as January this year, from what we understand that there was a substantial part in the 2018 budget, but that because this was for 2019, they submitted this particular you know, budget in January this year.
But the point is that they ought to submit it as early as October last year, or as early as September, as early as the executive was preparing for the entire budget. Because this is a budget you want to be passed this year. Now, that's by the way. If they submitted it in January, what stops, is there any provision of the law that stops the executive from looking at it very well and sending it to the National Assembly by March? There is no provision of the law that says they must pass the budget.
They say it is not done. I mean, I don't know if you saw the statement of Garba Shehu. He says that it is not done, that when the main budget is still before the National Assembly, it is not done that you send a supplementary budget. Is there anything, have you heard that before? Or is it really some tradition that we're following?
Yeah, he should have pointed out any legislation or any provision of the Constitution that says that you cannot do it. Or is it that the National Assembly said they cannot consider it? I don't see any law prohibiting bringing something, even to amend the budget, because you may not even be talking about supplementary budget, because there has to be budget before there will be supplementary budget. But there is nothing saying that you cannot send something into that budget for them to continue the consideration. And besides that, after signing on that June, after signing the budget, June, you can send the next one the next day. You can send it in the evening of the signing of the budget. So I don't think that it's really a very good reason to say that you have to send it in July or in August. Why the 1 month delay? When you know you're already out of time. When you're out of time, you do as much as... You can even send it to them. They will be... The only thing is that they will not pass it until the budget is passed. And I do not think there is any law prohibiting the National Assembly from including it into the main budget and consider them along together. There is no law prohibiting them. If you say it's not a procedure should be beyond law. And if anything is working injustice on you, provided there is no law stopping it, you can move ahead. I mean, we should start working in a way that things will be better for the law. Is made for people and not people for the law. If you know it's very important, why don't you do it?
Oh, we'll definitely come back to that. But we'll ask you to hold your thoughts for us. Mr. Alobi, he has said that there's some things that you don't need training for. I mean, some people will say it is common knowledge that you should not see vote buying and think that it is a good thing. I mean, if people are getting rewarded for voting for a particular party, you know, there are certain things that the police should be aware of, whether or not they were even trained for it. Do you agree with him? And, you know, what should they have done under those kinds of circumstances?
You see, the Electoral Act provides that, like he mentioned, the returning officer has to tell the police, arrest this person who has committed the electoral offense. And that is a problem in the Electoral Act. So the Electoral Act empowers the returning officer to tell the police officer when to arrest when electoral offense is committed. So, but the policeman can arrest when any crime is committed, like somebody going with firearms, for instance, someone who commits violence. These are criminal offenses which are in the criminal legislation. But when the electoral acts are in the electoral offense and electoral act, and only the returning officer can tell the policeman, arrest this person who has committed this electoral
now
offense.
let me paint a scenario.
So in that case, it's not the police, it's the INEC electoral returning officer who should be responsible.
Okay, let's paint a scenario now. I remember in the Ekiti elections when we talked about, the role of vote buying, INEC said, look, a lot of what happened in Ekiti happened outside the polling units. I mean, they happened some 200-300 meters away from the polling center. So, for instance, they might have electoral, what they call them, their party officials who are monitoring what party you actually voted for, or in some instances, the electorate themselves actively taking pictures of who they voted for to go and show people some meters away from the actual polling centers. INEC says we do not have powers over what happens outside the polling center. But can we say that the police or the security agencies don't have power over what happens, some meters away from the polling centers, especially if pictures are being shown and people are being rewarded for, voting for a particular party? I
don't agree with INEC officer who says INEC don't have power to checkmate whatever that happens outside the polling booth. Because it's a process.
Not the polling booth, the polling area.
The polling area.
Yes.
Because the INEC officer, anything around, anything that the important thing is the election itself. Any act that will go against the proper process of the election, the INEC officer should see to that.
So you want INEC to be the one to mandate the police officers to say, we don't want that.
No, the electoral act provides that. Like he did mention, the returning officer is the one supposed to tell the police officer this person has committed an electoral offense. That's what they provide in the electoral act.
Well, we have had instances where security agencies tell people have gone to complain that, see, these people are buying votes here, or these people are selling votes here.
Yeah.
And we have been told that the security agency will say, look, I don't have any business with people buying or selling votes. If you want to come and buy and sell your own, come and park here and do what you want.
That's what I'm saying, that provision of the electoral act,
yes,
it's a lacuna, in the sense that only the electoral officer, the returning officer who has authority to inform the police officer when to arrest when such an offense is committed. Understand? So when the police officer is now educated, like this issue of buying vote is a new development. A new development that it's not been common in our electoral.
Vote buying has always been with us.
But not common. Throughout my years in the police service, I never saw at the polling area people buying votes, because maybe it depends upon the way the place was being policed. But then I think both the electoral officers and the INEC officers, the police, all stakeholders who are involved in the electoral process are accountable. They all need to have worked with unity of thought and action, common vision to achieve a transparent, credible, and violence-free election. That's what's supposed to be for that's to be the ultimate. Both the electoral INEC officials, the police, and those who are involved in the electoral process, this to be the fundamental objective of the process, what to achieve. So with the INEC, again, obviously should know that he too has a duty, not to question pushing the ball or a kind of rationalizing, different mechanism. It is, all of them have a role to perform.
What about, we have to take a moment now, but when we come back, we'll ask about, what about situations whereby, the security agencies actively work for the political actors? In this instance, they're not vote buying or anything of the sort, but actively, participating in elections with the intention to disrupt it. What happens in that particular scenario? In a moment, please stay with us.